Hello and welcome to Talkin Tunes, the show where we talk about sex, drugs and rock and roll, even though not really sex and not really drugs, so mostly rock and roll, and other music, anything I find interesting, any music that has come along, any news, and stuff I want to share with you guys. Coming up, we talk about Jack White's new song, we talk about Vended, Corey Talyors' son's new band, and we talk about Bruce Dickinson's brand new psychology-based podcast. First up today, we're talking about Vended, the brand new band coming from the minds of Griffin Taylor, Corey Talyors' son, and Simon Graham, Clown's son. And these guys have been apparently in a band for a couple of years now, but they're both very young. I believe Griffin is 19, so, you know, the fact that they've been in a band for a few years already means that they've been playing since they were extremely young. They've released an EP with 2 tracks on it, Asylum and Burn My Misery. Both of those tracks turn out to slap. The first thing you'll notice when you listen to these songs is that Griffin is a vocal spitting image of his dad Corey. You can really hear that the, I don't know, something about the Taylor vocal cords are definitely hereditary, because that guy can scream and he already sounds like his dad does. You know, not quite close enough that you would necessarily say that it was a lesser version of Slipknot or something like that. It's distinctive to some degree, but it really does sound like he's a tip off the old block. And then you've got Clown's son, Simon, in the drum position. So much double bass drum. There's a lot of so much double bass drum. The band is rounded out with 2 guitarists, Cole Espeland and Connor Grodzicki. Try saying that 10 times fast. And then also bassist Jeremiah Pugh. That is a solid set of artist names. You've got Cole, Connor, Jeremiah, Griffin, and Simon. But, you know, the rest of them are great. You can definitely tell they've been raised into music. But, so Griffin is only 19. But weirdly enough, he made his on-stage debut singing with Stone Sour, Corey's original band, when he was only 14. So this kid has been raised to be on the stage and singing metal. It makes sense that they already sound like a very fully formed band, which they definitely do. There's a lot of screaming. It's really heavy. Honestly, it's heavier than some of the more recent Slipknot stuff I've heard. Not so much melody in the chorus, as Corey often puts it. There's a lot of screaming, but I will admit, it's done very well. It's definitely one of those tracks you want to chuck on if you're going to the gym. Definitely worth checking those 2 tracks out, especially if you are a fan of Slipknot. So the second thing I wanted to talk about today is that Jack White has finally released some new solo music. It's been a while. It's been 3 years since he released music as part of the Raconteurs, and then a year before that since he released any more solo music when he put out Boarding House Reach. Great album. Honestly, not my favourite of his 3 solos. It's my least favourite, actually, but that's not an insult on the album, because it is really, really good with a couple of really outstanding songs on it. So he's back, and apparently he's playing all of the instruments, which is cool. So the song is called Taking Me Back, and interestingly, he's got a partnership or an affiliation or something like that with Call of Duty, which is not a matching I would have put together in my head. Jack doesn't strike me as the kind of man who needs to do anything for money anymore, so I guess maybe he just thought it was good exposure, or he's a secret gamer, even though, again, I really wouldn't have expected that, considering that his house is just full of taxidermied animals and old musical equipment. But the music video came out for Taking Me Back, and it's Call of Duty themed. Do with that information as you will. I will be interested to see whether or not it gets a real live-action music video at some point, or whether or not he's going to save that for a different track on what we assume is going to be an upcoming album, or whether or not that's it. This is what this video is going to look like. Fair enough, I can't really comment, but that's an interesting pairing. But the saving grace is the song does bang. It is typical, energetic Jack White experimenting with timbres and sounds. The gain on that freaking guitar is insane. It sounds like someone's placed the amp upon your head. Really, really worth it. And the other interesting thing about this release is that he released 2 versions of the same song. One of them, the slower version, is not like a remix or something like that. It's a straight up different song. Well, it's not a different song, but it's a cover of that other song, if that makes sense. The instrumentation is completely different. It's a lot slower, about 30 seconds longer because of that. Rather than heavy guitar and synths, it's more about piano and strings, which is really interesting, actually, to release those 2 right at, literally part of the same EP. So definitely worth checking out. I would say that the slower version grabbed me less, but I think it's probably going to be one of those slow burners where if I hear it a few times, I'm going to end up being addicted. The whole song is absolutely like that. This is coming off the back of Jack opening his first branch of Third Man Records in London, which is amazing. I've still not managed to get myself down there yet, but I definitely plan to do so, because it sounds like a place where dreams are made, honestly. So Jack opened it with a secret basement set, because Jack is a huge fan of playing secret basement sets, apparently, especially in London. I did read that he has quite a lot of affection for London and England as part of his fan base, because it was one of the first places where the White Stripes ended up being picked up and really taken seriously. So that's really, really cool. They should have, it's got, the music studio attached to it, so sort of branch for their record label too. Got a shop. It has one of those machines where you stand inside it like a photo booth, put a penny inside, and you go on, probably not a penny, put some coins inside, and then it can go and record directly onto a vinyl, which is really cool. Personally designed by Jack himself, which is always a nice detail. And the coolest little detail is that the building that it's in is actually formerly a lazaretto, which of course ties into his second album. He's a clever guy, this Jack White. He might go on to do something successful at some point. Maybe write a song that people will never stop chanting at football games. I don't know. Finally today we're going to talk about Bruce Dickinson, Iron Maiden's singer, has started a new podcast with a psychologist from Oxford University, and the podcast is called Schizo Espresso Podcast. The Psycho Schizo Espresso Podcast, because of course it is. Apparently in this show, that him and this psychologist will be bringing in various musicians and analysts and other psychologists, behavioral scientists, athletes, ex-soldiers, which I thought was interesting. And they're going to be talking about the psychology of what makes people like that tick. They're also going to be talking about religion, which is often a gamble when it comes to doing stuff in the public, so fair enough for him for having the sack to do that. But apparently they're going to be tying a lot of the themes of the podcast in with Iron Maiden songs, which makes all of the sense. So the first episode that's coming out is going to be featuring Professor Stephen J. Friesen, a University of Texas biblical scholar, and they're going to be talking about 666, Number of the Beasts, the sort of religious connotations of that, where it came from, the stories that that song is clearly based on, which, to be fair, does actually sound quite interesting. So you're not going to hear any complaints from me. I'll be very, very interested to hear which other kind of people they bring in. I guess just how sustainable the podcast is. I guess maybe they'll do one on phobias of the dark, would make sense if you're going to talk about psychology. They'll probably do one about the Civil War with troopers, and there's definitely material, but I'm wondering how long-lived it will be. But yeah, I'm very curious. That podcast does come out on Halloween, so if you're looking for it there, I imagine it'll be pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts. So yeah, definitely check it out. I definitely will be, and then I'll probably give you my thoughts about it. And finally for this week, we of course round out the episode with Tune of the Week. And this week I've picked Meanwhile Rick James by Cake, the most captivatingly named band of all time. It's a really interesting song, so I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't realise that they've heard a Cake song, because they've got a song called Short Skirt, Long Jacket, which is featured in one of the Guitar Hero and or Rock Band games back in the day. That's how I originally heard of it. So yeah, this album came out in 2001. It's actually on the same album as Short Skirt, Long Jacket. There's a couple of other really good tracks on there as well. In fact, the entire album is worth a listen, but Meanwhile Rick James is the one that really stuck out to me. It's very strokesy in its vibe. The vocal delivery, the sort of way the guitar line and the bass line really sort of influence the structure of the song. It's got a very clear and obvious references to the Strokes, which is always a good thing. Lyrically, it's quite weird as well. I don't really know what it's about. There's talk of Rick James and nudes and other strange stuff like that, but it definitely makes you think. It's got a kind of dry sarcasm to it in the way that it's delivered, which definitely, well, I find it appealing anyway, so I'd really recommend it, and then maybe go on to do the entire album. So the album it's on is Comfort Eagle, if you want to look that up. It's really, it's quite chilled song, so I, put it in context for that. It's not metally, definitely not metally. It's a relaxed song with some sort of slightly wistfully sarcastic, dry lyrics. I'd really recommend giving that one a go. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Talking Tunes, where I just get to chat with you guys about the new and interesting music stuff that's coming up. We'll continue to keep you updated anytime something cool happens in the rock universe, so yeah. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, give us a like, that apparently is a good thing for people to do for me now, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye!